All right. Can you guys hear me, by the way? How you doing, Ash? How you doing, Shahid? It's good to see you guys, genuinely. It's been a long day, a long time since I went on live stream. I think it's been nearly pretty much a month since I've been on live stream. How's my audio? Do I sound clear? I did get a new mic, so I was just making sure. We missed you. Yeah, I've been very busy with the animations, to be honest, um, as well as my personal life. It's been very, very, very busy. But don't worry, everything's fine. Everything's good. Um, yeah, I'm doing well, guys. How are you guys doing, by the way? It's good to see you, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Are you Sage? Yeah, yeah. I'm the creator of Sage, as one may say. Um, but yeah, is this a dream? It might be a dream. You never know. Yeah. So what I've come to a, what do I want to call this? I was thinking that I should transfer my live streams over to YouTube because now that Instagram is also gaining attention and whatnot, it would be kind of limiting to only stream on TikTok. And so as a result, I decided to go on YouTube so that both platforms can watch my live streams. And I'm still getting the hang of it. You can tell by me taking so long to go on live because, I was trying to fix things and trying to set my camera up and everything. But yeah, we've eventually got to the point where now we're streaming, which is good. But for those who are new to my live streams, what we do is essentially give advice to each other, right? We think about and ponder about specific topics, perhaps even philosophy, to be exact, um, and overall just have a good time. I don't want to just give advice to people. That's not my aim. I'm trying to get to know everyone. I'm trying to listen to everyone in hopes of, other people listening to each other and giving each other advice, if that makes sense. How you doing, man? How you doing, Niles? Good to see you guys. Where you from, Sage? I'm from the UK, man, the United Kingdom. Nowadays, YouTube has gotten less popular, kind of. I understand what you mean, but I think that's mainly due to the demand for short-term content, in my opinion. But I think YouTube itself as a platform has adapted to that. And the reason why I say that is because they introduced shorts, YouTube shorts, right? And so now they are trying to bring that, I suppose, attention back into the platform. So yeah. How to stay on track of being pure and a really kind and wise person for everyone to do. You have tips. I need help with this, Sage. What do you mean by being pure? Like, what does that mean? In terms of being a really kind person as well as being a wise person, let's first understand what a kind person means. So, what is a kind person? So, in your perspective, in your eyes, what does it mean to be a kind person? In regards to wise, I would say four things create wisdom, or perhaps bring you wisdom and make you develop wisdom. And that's experience, knowledge, adaptability, and self reflection. You have to experience life, right? That's the first thing you have to do. You have to experience life, things that you've never experienced before. Maybe it's a relationship, it's a new job, it's a friendship, right? All these types of things you have to experience to then understand and learn from those experiences. You see, humans, or perhaps life as itself, is an interesting phenomenon. I don't know why, we don't know why, but for some reason it ought to survive. It does whatever it in its power to survive. And so from our experiences, we gain knowledge and lessons in order to survive, in order to adapt, in order to change the outcomes. And that's what we should aim to do, to learn from the experiences. Okay, I went wrong here. Why did I go wrong there? What could I do differently next time if I ever experience this once more to change the outcome? Does that make sense? Who do you take inspiration from, and from where do you derive mortality? Mortality. I'm guessing you mean morality. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but in regards to who I take inspiration from, that's a good question, to be honest. I would say mainly the ancient Stoics. I somewhat look up to the ancient Stoics. I truly appreciate the ancient Stoics because of their teachings. In particular, Epictetus. I think Epictetus is one of my favorite philosophers of all time. When I first started reading his Discourses of Epictetus, he, I was blown away because I've never read a book, or perhaps never read any type of work like his before. He was the individual, the philosopher who introduced the teaching, or this idea of amor fati. He was the individual who introduced the idea of accepting what you can't control and focusing on what you can control. So yeah. Are your videos based on stoicism, the philosophy propounded by Marcus Aurelius and the like? Yes. I would, yeah. So basically, what most of my videos are essentially stoicism. It essentially preaches the philosophy of stoicism. And I can understand that Marcus Aurelius essentially popularized the philosophy, or perhaps people think of Marcus Aurelius when you say stoicism, or when you think of stoicism, you think of Marcus Aurelius. But the philosophy dates back years before Marcus Aurelius even existed. The father of stoicism is an individual called Zeno of Citium, and he was inspired by the Cynics. Right? There's the cynical philosophy, and that's how Stoicism came about. Who else was it? Epictetus then further popularized the philosophy in Greece, and one of, I think it was Xenocitium's students. I think his name was Baby, or what was it? Diogenes of Babylon. Diogenes of Babylon was a student of Xenocitium, who then popularized Stoicism in Rome. He brought the Stoic philosophy into Rome, and that's how Seneca and Marcus Aurelius found out about the philosophy and then also practiced it for themselves. What would you do when your efforts aren't matched with someone? That's a good question. Before anything, before I even take action, I would first talk to them about it. I'll first observe whether or not they really do care about my concerns. Depending on how they respond to my perhaps criticism, or my feelings, let's just say, then I'll take the necessary action. So let's say, as an example, if the person doesn't care about my thoughts or feelings, then I will understand that first of all, and then I'll distance myself. Right? I'll end things because I understand that this individual doesn't care about me or my concerns. So there's no need to pursue this any further. Hi, Messenger. It's me, Mehran. How you doing, man? It's good to see you. What is your opinion on pirating content? I'm against it, but I do understand why people do it. Majority of the companies who sell you products online, um, they can be a bit greedy, and they can promise you that that you own the products, where in truth most people don't own the products. So I understand why people pirate content, but I'm personally against it. It essentially goes against my morals. Empty vessel of a channel. This guy is not who you need to be listening to. Well, thank you for sharing your opinion, first of all. I'm also interested in why you think the way you do. Can you suggest a book related to philosophy? Discourses of Epictetus, Letters on Ethics by Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, um, The Art of Happiness by Epicurus. What else is there? I and Thou is a good one as well. Philosophy and Life by A.C. Grayling. It's a very difficult read, I would say, but overall it's a good one. I have a whole list of books regarding philosophy and all that type of stuff in my Discord server. What do you think of the Stoics? Overall, I do think the Stoics are great, especially the ancient Stoics, as the three that I mentioned, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus. I think they're great. Um, like all philosophies, I do think that it does have its flaws. Like the logical side of Stoicism is a bit interesting. Doesn't really make sense to me personally. But overall, I think the Stoics, as well as the philosophy, is a great philosophy to learn and to look into. Not just practice. You don't have to practice the philosophy. You don't want to if you don't agree with it. But it's good to learn. What's your perspective on post-death, the afterlife, basically? I would want there to be an afterlife, but at the same time, I wouldn't want it to be how mainstream media portrays it to be, eternal, forever. Because after some time, life can get boring. Let's just say you die, right? Um, and you perhaps go into this afterlife, um, and it's forever. It's forever. You're going to live forever. You can do whatever you want, right? At some point you're going to get bored, and at some point it's going to start becoming meaningless. And that's why if I had the chance to be immortal, I wouldn't take it. But to answer your question, for me personally, I don't think there is life after death. That's just my perspective. What I think happens after we die is nothing. And I know that's a very underwhelming answer, but that's how I perceive it. It makes sense, because if you were to date back before you were born, you can't really recall information, you can't really recall memories, because you didn't exist, right? And because you didn't exist, you didn't experience. And I think death is essentially the same thing. Because you don't exist, you won't experience anything. Um, so yeah. Can we talk about the Stoics? Of course we can. What's your personal opinion on surprises? That's an interesting question. Um, I mean, I'm kind of in the middle with it. I don't really like surprises, but I do at the same time. I suppose it depends on the surprise, to be honest, and it depends on how the surprise presents itself to me. What is that purple thing on your glasses? So my glasses are essentially blue light protective lenses. So it prevents blue light from entering my retinas. Do you have formal education or philosophy, or it comes from life experience? So as of right now, it comes from life experience, but in a few months, or perhaps next in like 2 months or so, I'll be pursuing it as education. I read Meditations, that one by Marcus, and I caught holding of a fact that most people have misunderstood Stoicism because they have started to believe that it's all about being emotional rock. I agree. I totally agree with that. And yeah, I totally agree that the reason why is because, as you said, mainstream media have misinterpreted the philosophy of Stoicism, making it seem like it's a philosophy that preaches emotional indifference, but it's not that. And the reason why it's not that is because the Stoics, the ancient Stoics in particular, don't teach that. The Stoics preached that the emotions that we go through are essentially out of our control, right? Because emotions are interesting. Oftentimes, when we experience a traumatic experience, the initial reaction that we have towards it is emotional, and often that's out of our control. And what they say is don't let these specifically negative emotions control you and cloud your judgment. They don't say to suspend emotions. They don't say to remove your emotions. Because after all, your emotions are what make you human, right? They make you human. Um, and it's not wise to remove such part of what makes you human. All right. Only 17 people here. Yes, so I haven't done any promotions to the live stream because I was essentially rushing it all. So yeah, um, I thought when you said surprise, I thought you said soprano. I haven't watched The Sopranos yet, to be honest. No Waste Messenger in the flesh. How you doing, man? What inspired you in creating your social media stuff? That's a good question. I think the main thing was the passion to help people. Ever since a young age, I've always found gratitude and satisfaction in helping others find a solution to their problems. And so I decided to bring that over to social media where I can help people globally, right? I can reach to more people and help more people. How long will you live stream for? That's a good question. I would say another 30 minutes or so, half an hour. What's your idea of God, if you don't mind? Yeah, sure. If I had an idea of God, I would perceive it to be everything. So a more naturalistic perspective. What I mean by God being everything is because God is often perceived as an omnipresent deity. Uh, it would mean that God is everywhere. So that's how I would perceive God if I did. What TV shows and movies have you seen? Um, I've seen The Flash, Punisher, Day of Jackal. Niall recommended that to me. The Reacher. What else is there? I've watched this first season of Breaking Bad, and then I stopped watching it. I watched The Boys. I watched What else is there? Um, I watched the first season of Squid Game and then I stopped watching it in the second season because it kind of got a bit boring. But yeah, what else is there? There's definitely more TV shows that I've watched, but I can't really recall any right now. What's your favorite Stoic quote? My one is, "Those who do not see what is in their minds of others are seldom to be unhappy." Marcus Aurelius, isn't it? That's definitely Marcus Aurelius. My one would have to be, "Your judgment creates suffering," as well as, "We often suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Another one would be, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you shall find strength." I miss Gluma and Justina. I must have reintroduced Gluma to one of the recent videos. But I'm trying to find a way to bring them back in a permanent way, because obviously Sage has taken the spotlight. Often initially it was Wise One who was teaching and whatnot, and then it went over to Gluma, and then after that Sage was introduced, and then Justina was introduced, and now it's Sage. But I'm definitely going to find a way to reintroduce them permanently. What do you think about Albert Camus? I read a little bit of his book, The Stranger. I haven't finished it. Um, and in an interesting way, I do agree with his philosophy, the philosophy of absurdism. For me personally, when it comes to the meaning of life, I tend to have the existentialist perspective on it, right? But I also turn to absurdism when it comes to the meaning of life. You see how people try to find meaning in a meaningless world. It does make sense to me. But at the same time, whenever I agree with that perspective and that philosophy, I do also remind myself of the existential philosophy, the philosophy by which meaning is created subjectively through you. Doesn't matter if the meaning of life doesn't exist objectively, it can still be created via through you, if that makes sense. From what I understand, synthesis, well, sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Coined a pantheistic view of God, he is immanent in all nature, the logos, and pervades the universe. Yeah, so logos is the part in regards to stoicism, which was initially very confusing to me until I obviously learned more about it. Um, but that is interesting. I did not know that. You ever watch Dexter? My brother told me to watch it because he's watching it right now. But I've never really watched Dexter, to be honest. Logically, since the beginning of life required a designer slash creator, since there can't be an infinite chain of regressions, there has to be afterlife to balance out the deeds, good and evil thoughts. What makes you think that's what makes you think that's logical? Why does that logically make sense to you? And why would there be a need for an afterlife to balance out the good deeds? Seneca cooking with that quote, honestly. My idea on existence of God for those who question it is that if it exists, it will never let existence be denied or accepted fully, because for the growth of humanity we need both. I do agree with that. I totally agree with that. I will also say, if God did exist, it would be objectively accepted by everyone, right? The fact that God exists would be objectively accepted. But because it isn't, raises some questions. Because we don't really know much about God. We don't really have much evidence to support his existence. It becomes very problematic to say that God exists, because we can't come to the conclusion and say God exists without having some level of evidence to support it. Science itself can't really answer that question. But just because it can't answer the question of God and his existence doesn't mean that it can't in the future. What do you think real happiness is? Working to satisfy society or following your passion? I think real happiness is what you make it to be. I don't think there is such thing as real happiness. And the reason why I say that is because happiness in itself is a subjective, abstract concept, right? Um, Obviously, we can objectively agree that happiness, being happy, means, uh, you know, being. Oh, hold on a second. What does happiness even mean? What does it mean to be happy? Wow, wow. How to be more charismatic? Niall, I think you're you're charismatic enough, in my opinion, and that's a good thing, by the way. But to answer your question, let me think about this. How to be more charismatic? Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you. What concept of life would you embody in your opinion? What do you mean by that? I also share a similar philosophy, as in my philosophy takes on stoic and absurdist values. However, for some reason, I never know my own values in the spur of the moment. Do you have advice? Do you have an idea as to why you may not have a reason for those values in certain moments? Could you share reading tips? Yeah, sure. Um, Try and find a very modern translation of the book that you're reading. Read a very short book, not too long. Keep it short, and every single day, at least spend 2 minutes reading the book. Right, read one page a day, for example. As long as you start in small increments, that's all that matters, in my opinion. Also, make sure that you're taking notes. And if you're going to ask me what to take notes on, I will say take notes on things that you find interesting, things that you like, things that confuse you, things that you don't disagree. Sorry, things that you don't agree with, things that you, um, I don't know, dislike, for example. So yeah, I don't really think there's a concrete way of taking notes when it comes to reading the book. But that's what I would say. Hey Messenger, did you notice we have started a philosophical debate or much of expression in the comment section? Of course, yeah, I have noticed that, and I love it genuinely. I think that's that's the one reason why I do this. To have discussions like this, not just to give advice. Obviously, I still love giving advice to individuals, but I also love having deep conversation and discussions regarding such topics because it is interesting. We don't really have an answer, but we can only assume and we can only think, you know, predict or guess or whatever. What's up, man? How you doing, man? Yeah, so next time that we do a YouTube live stream, I will be more organized. I'll be posting it on Instagram and TikTok as well. So we can have more people, more discussions, etc. Not that the discussions here are terrible or not, they're amazing. Um, but yeah, greetings from Hungary. Love your content. What is your take on stoicism in social media? I'm basing my MA thesis on Ryan Holiday's authenticity of modern stoicism, and I'm curious of your take. Yeah, sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate your comment. I think social media in particular have essentially misconstrued the philosophy of stoicism. I've stated this previously, just earlier, about 2 minutes ago. I think I think stoicism on social media is not the same as ancient stoicism, or how ancient stoics perceive and portray the philosophy. You see, social media portrayed to be a philosophy that preaches being emotionally indifferent and being a stone, emotionless person. That's not what it is, right? Um, in fact, it's quite the opposite. Stoicism teaches individuals to not only understand their emotions, but also find a way to prevent them from controlling them and clouding their judgment. Because, emotions, although very natural, uh, as human beings, we all have emotions. We all experience anger and sadness, etc. It can be very destructive at times, and it can be very ineffective when dealing with such situations. And so, what we require when um, experiencing very emotional situations is taking a step back, understanding the reason as to why we feel the way we feel. Why do we feel angry? Why do we feel sad? And so on, so on. And then we take the necessary action, which is then, okay, is this productive? Is this a constructive way of dealing with the situation? Is me being angry about the situation helping me in any way? Right? And essentially, self reflecting and then adapting is what I would say, is essentially what that is. So, yeah, man, I mean, it is kind of upsetting to see what stoicism has become on social media, or contemporary stoicism. I think Ryan Holiday's take on stoicism, obviously, he's been very educated with the philosophy. Um, I think it's great. I think he understands the philosophy. I think he preaches the philosophy in a great way. Although, what I've noticed regarding Ryan Holiday is no one really wants to listen to the real stoicism that he's teaching. From what I've essentially observed is most of social media want the emotionless side of stoicism to be more on social media, if that makes sense, and that gets more views. um but I don't really agree with that, right? From what I do on my page, I aim to make stoicism what it really is, to preach the philosophy exactly how it's been preached thousands of years ago. Gonna do these streams regularly. I finally found a guy to discuss philosophy with me. I appreciate you, man, genuinely. Yeah, well, for sure. I'll definitely do these streams more regularly. I'm trying to find some time to put these live streams in my schedule because of the recent long-term or long-form YouTube video animations that I'm doing. Um, I can't really find time to live stream. However, I think I can make something work. I noticed Stoicism is getting the same treatment as Epicureanism and cynicism. Cynicism, sorry. I agree, especially Epicureanism. I think Epicurus as a philosopher has also been very misunderstood. People hear the name hedonism, or the philosophy hedonism, sorry, and they think, oh, that's the philosophy of pleasure. I'm not going to listen to that. And the thing is, Epicurus never taught or never preached, pursuing pleasure in the way that mainstream media and the current society that we live in understand pleasure to be. Epicurus believed that we should live a life of ataraxia, and what ataraxia means is peace. A tranquil life, a peaceful life, independent from fear, the fear of death and the fear of um, failing and all those types of fears. So that's what he preached, the life of ataraxia. The Pyrrho, he also preached the idea and the way of living of ataraxia. The Stoics, they somewhat preached the idea. But yeah. Why are you called Messenger on social media? No particular reason, to be honest. I mean, I like the name Messenger, so I decided to call myself that. Um, what are your thoughts on hold on? What are your thoughts on people focusing on many celebrities other than themselves? I mean, people can do what they want. I mean, I don't really judge. If they want to focus on celebrities and what they're doing, you know, by all means, you can do that. Uh, but I think it's important to have a balance between focusing on other people around you as well as focusing on yourself. Um, I think focusing solely on yourself is also unhealthy. You have to also take care of the people around you, and and so on, so on. Um, but yeah, I think there needs to be a balance. This idea, this concept of self improvement has been very diluted, or perhaps I don't know what the right word is, but a lot of people are fixated on self improvement. All they're doing is improving themselves, focusing on themselves, and essentially disregarding the people around them. And what that causes is essentially isolation. They isolate themselves unintentionally, and before you know it, in the path of self improvement, you have found yourself in the path of isolation. You look around you and you notice that you become very distant with the people around you. You become very um, antisocial, perhaps. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be a balance between the two. What are your thoughts on atheism? I'm not really. I mean, that's a good question. I'm not really knowledgeable when it comes to atheism. I do understand that it's the atheists kind of disregard um, the existence of God, or perhaps um, they don't disregard it completely, but they're skeptical. Essentially, they're skeptical about the existence of God and the claims that most theists make in regards to the existence of God. Um, and I think it's a very logical and a very healthy way of approaching such discussions and such ideas, because you know to believe so, I mean, obviously belief is having faith in something without needing evidence, right? That's what belief is. um, but to know something, or perhaps to believe in something without having some level of evidence, it can be problematic. you know it can fall into the saying ignorance is bliss if you are aware of your ignorance. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong though. I think the especially the mainstream religions, the three main Abrahamic religions, especially Christianity and Islam, they contain a lot of wisdom. Um, I myself have a Bible, a Quran, and a Bhagavad Gita. I think that's the Hindu religious textbook or holy book. Um, I have to reread them again because I've essentially forgotten most of what I learned. But from what I've gathered, from what I can remember, I do, remember there being a lot of wisdom within it. Um, so yeah. Abortion is only justified if it's done to save the mother's life or early before the baby starts developing to save a great victim from trauma and childbirth pain. Would you agree with this? It's a moral dilemma. So, an interesting question. Abortion is only justified if it's done to save the mother's life or early before the baby's developing to save a great victim from the trauma and childbirth. I think yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the stage of the baby's uh, of how old the baby is, if that makes sense. If it's still a fetus, if it's become a full grown human, I think it depends on that. But if it is a fetus, then 100%, um, I think it is justified. But if it isn't and it's become a full grown human, then it becomes very problematic because it's either you save one life or another life, Um, so that's a very interesting moral dilemma that you've given me. What do you think about that? I'm very keen to knowing your perspective on that. Are you excited upon any upcoming movie or a season of a show? Yes, I am. So I'm looking forward to Stranger Things coming this November. Next year is looking really, really stacked in regards to movies and TV shows. I think The Punisher is rumored to come out. I'm not too sure if it's true. Reach is coming out. What else? Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out. Avengers Doomsday is coming out. The Boys is coming out. So many different things are coming out next year. It's insane. I'm looking forward to them all. What are your thoughts on religion and the impacts it is having on our world? That's a good question. I think that religion should, if it does, then fair enough. But if it doesn't, then I think it should promote critical thinking more. It should promote questioning. It should promote seeking for evidence, conducting research and experimentation on such claims. I think if religion doesn't do that, it should do that, and if it does, fair enough. Wouldn't a skeptical atheist be considered agnostic? Well, atheists are considered agnostic, to be honest. It's an interesting. I don't really know much about, so I can't really say um, exactly what I'm trying to say. But atheists are considered as agnostic. And even so, atheists are, and even so, atheists are skeptical, regardless of them being considered agnostic. Um, because I don't think atheists completely disregard the claim of God existing. I think they're still like everyone else, in my opinion, um, like scientists, like religious people, theists. They're also trying to understand. the claim and trying to figure out if such claim is true, if God does exist. Is there law behind your videos or characters? Yes. So if you go over to my TikTok page, you should see a playlist of all my videos, all my animations that I've done. And yeah, all the lore should be there. From the wise one, the main character that I made, to Gloomer, the second character, then to Sage, that everyone obviously knows about, who's the third character, and then Justina, who was the fourth character, who I've um, kind of let go of, to be honest. I want to bring her back. Um, but yeah. Hello, Sage. How are you in this afternoon? I want to ask, what do you think of Carl Jung shadow psychology? You know, I want to learn more about Carl Jung's philosophy and especially psychology, because I do find it interesting. I do find it fascinating. So I can't really say my opinion because I don't have any knowledge in regards to the shadow. But yeah, I'm definitely going to, when I do have the time, I want to look into Carl Jung as not only a philosopher but as a psychologist as well. Next year, season three, House of Dragons. Oh wow! And this year, Alice in Borderland. You know, my friend told me to watch Alice in Borderland. Apparently, it's basically similar to Squid Game in a sense. That's what he told me, but I don't know if it's true. Baby starts developing after 40 days. Okay, so then I would say it would be okay if it's still a fetus. But even so, is a fetus classified as a human being or is it not? Atheism is less of an insult to God than religion is. What makes you say that? Allah Messenger, what do you think nowadays teens have been obsessed with self-improvement in a way that's toxic and it's what? Yeah, so I spoke about this earlier. I think I think it's become extreme now. The idea of hyper self-improvement. It's become to the point where people are fixated on self-improvement. They're doing is improving themselves, you know? And I think we should, take a step back and pause and say, why am I doing this? Why am I improving myself? For what? What am I trying to achieve? Why is the only thing that I'm doing improving myself other than, spending time with, the people around me, socializing, experiencing life and doing other things that are not regarding myself, you know? Um, it's become something, it's become a product of the ego, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't improve yourself. I think you should improve yourself. But I also think you should balance that with helping others and, spending time with other people and socializing and, you know, although our actions are mainly or mostly unintentionally or intentionally selfish, we need to make sure that's not our intentions, or we need to make sure that our intentions are more selfless than they are selfish. And what I'm trying to say is every action that we commit, right, is always selfish. And the reason why I say that is because let's say you want to help someone. You want to help someone cross the road, right? Some old person who wants to cross the road who needs some assistance and you help them. And in exchange, sure, there's a selfless act there. you're helping them. But deep down, you want some aspect of praise. You want that person to thank you, to, you know, you want to look good helping someone else. And that's why I think most of our actions are selfish, even if there's selfless elements to it. Now, that doesn't mean your action was bad. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that. Um, if 40 days pass and there's no life threat, she should give birth and give the baby to a center which nurtures the baby and helps him grow to serve society and live in a normal life. And his parents' past shouldn't be revealed to prevent any slandering or abusing towards him from society. That's understandable. I think that's fair. But obviously, there's many factors that play into it. Um, Regarding the center that they take the baby, if it's a good center, if it's a bad center, whether or not the secret of their parents' past is revealed or isn't revealed. There's so many factors that just change the, what do I want to call it? Just change the outcome, the situation. To my knowledge, there are agnostic theists and agnostic atheists. For example, an agnostic theist believes a God must exist but doesn't remove the possibility of it not existing. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. They both exist. Um, I don't really think a fetus should have the same rights as a human being. Okay. What makes you think that? Why do you think that way? I never said that, but regardless, it's dependent on a living thing like us. Discarding it without any legitimate reason is far from moral, neither does it deserving of such. Well, fair enough. That makes sense. I mean, bro, I don't think rights like these should be given to something that's not even hold on, having an emotional connection with others. No one depends on the fetus. All right, fair enough. I was just making sure because I'm not really knowledgeable when it comes to a fetus compared to a human being, and whether or not they're both the same, or perhaps one has more moral um, jurisdiction than the other one does. What do you think about psychological egoism? Could you tell me more about psychological egoism so I can share my opinion regarding it? Just entering, what's the topic? Right now, it's about religion, the existence of God, the moral dilemma of abortion. But the fetus doesn't have anything to do with the mother getting pregnant. There are adoption centers if the mother doesn't want the baby. It doesn't have to be cruel abortion, but considering the mother's health, it's definitely a difficult dilemma depending on your personal morals. I agree. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Bro, ever read Dostoevsky? I've read White Nights. That's the only book I've read. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'll read more of his books in the future. Like Crime and Punishments is one of the books that really does get a lot of attention. A lot of people, um, I don't want to say idolize, more of praise it. They praise the book. You can get pregnant without being your choice. Yeah, I exactly. Your videos are amazing. Keep up. Thank you, man. I appreciate that talk. That means a lot to me. Genuinely. It's been so long since I spoken for 55 minutes. So my throat is a bit sore. Um, you may not wish to bear a child that was conceived in a traumatic event. Talking about great. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, I do agree, but it also depends. Um, yeah, actually, no, that makes sense. I agree. You have a great voice. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, Queen. What do you think about gore? I want to overcome that fear. Overcome the fear of gore, like seeing gore. Um, it may be a bit disturbing uh, to approach it this way, but I think if you want to overcome the fear of gore, I think exposing yourself to gore can help. And I know that's strange to say, but the thing is, if you expose yourself to the fear, what you're scared of, usually, oftentimes, you can understand that it's not as scary as you may perceive it to be, or perhaps you understand what it is, right? The same applies with a spider. If you're afraid of a spider, um, you can expose yourself to a spider. Let's just say a spider is in your room. You not even just grab it, but you touch it. You're essentially exposing yourself to the fear of spiders. Is that what you're trying to say? Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, when it comes um, to overcoming that fear. It's damn good, crime and punishment, but sometimes it goes brutally deep. Oh, wow, is it? Yeah, I've heard great things about crime and punishment. I am looking forward to reading it in the future. Psychological egoism states that every action you do is motivated by self interest, helping someone for praise and approval. I think such thing exists. And I think it's universal in a sense. We're all selfish beings. But once again, that's not a bad thing, right? A selfless desire, sorry, a selfish desire that comes from a selfless act isn't a bad thing, in my opinion, anyway. How about you give us a topic for us to? How about hold on? How about you give a topic for us to ponder on? Okay, let me see here. What does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be you? Who are you? Get rid of all the identity that you've wrapped around yourself and look at yourself. Who are you? What are you? Who are we without identity? Don't get mad if I give a small spoiler, but that story is on a man who suffers from his own crime in his mind. That's interesting. That's not really a spoiler in my opinion. And the thing is, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm not really like fussed about spoilers. Wouldn't that be ego death? Um, one could think that way. Yeah, I would definitely say it could be perceived that way. How do you deal with people who have caused genocide and unalive innocent civilians, especially infants and suckling babies? Would you unalive those evil people, eye for an eye, or jail? If I did the same damage that the other person have caused me, what difference would that make? I don't really agree with the idea of eye for an eye because eventually nothing changes. It's just an endless ego war, right? I think defending um, defending yourself against such genocide or defending innocent civilians against that is totally understandable and it should happen. You should defend yourself from that. But doing the same damage that they caused you isn't what I agree with. I don't think I agree with that. Because at the end of the day, it just makes you like them. Marcus Aurelius said the same thing. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. So yeah, I wouldn't really agree with the philosophy of eye for an eye. Um, it just makes you like the person who has caused you damage. Hello, Sage. Thank you for your videos. Thank you, man. I appreciate your comment, and you're welcome. Thank you for your work, man. Your videos help me to over a breakup. It still stings sometimes, but at least I know what to do with it right now. Thanks to you. Oh, that's really good to hear, man. I appreciate you telling me that. And obviously, it's still going to sting, regardless of me preaching videos regarding breakups and whatnot. It's still going to hurt, right? Um, but yeah, man, I think what I would definitely advise you do is take some time to process it all. If you need to grieve and cry, lay it all out genuinely. It's a great way to deal with your emotions, especially the negative ones. Um, and yeah, and how would you deal with people who actively support and fund genocide despite knowing what they are doing is wrong? Well, that's a good question. The thing is, right, we as people do not have control over what other people do. You know, we can't stop what other people do with their money and their lives. Is it wrong? It could be, right? It could be perceived as wrong. I personally think that supporting a genocide and funding is definitely wrong. Um, but such people exist. Such people exist. And I don't really know what we can do about those people. But creating an attitude that can overcome the urge to take in revenge is hard, actually hard. I agree. Revenge is so overwhelming, and oftentimes it's a poison. Once it consumes you, it has you. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to overcome that urge to take revenge. It's definitely possible. And I think reminding yourself continuously regardless of what your ego tells you, continuously reminding yourself that you are not your enemy. You will not be your enemy. Can help. Revenge is a fool's game. I totally agree with them. Hello, Sage. Came here to say, do you know anything about Machiavellism and how could we detect someone who isn't Machiavellian? I am aware of the philosophy and the philosopher, um, and I understand that the philosophy was more of a political philosophy in regards to gaining power in the political world or the political aspect of life. I now understand and I've now learned that it has now become more of a psychological thing because obviously Machiavelli used psychological and manipulative tactics to gain power in political environments. So, said that, I would say if someone is very manipulative, and how would you know if someone's manipulative? Perhaps deceiving you, right? And if you're aware of the deceiving, amazing. Oftentimes, obviously, when someone manipulates you, you're not really aware of it. And that's the whole point. They're trying to get something from you by deceiving you, by, you know, lying to you and telling you something that's not true. Um, and perhaps, yeah, so manipulating is one. What else is there? Perhaps gaslighting, which is essentially a form of manipulation. Um, Well, yeah, I think when it comes to Machiavelli and his philosophy, or the psychological part of the philosophy, I would say I don't really know much about it. Um, but yeah, let me see if I can put on some music and let me know if you can hear it because I tried to test it out and I don't think it worked. Can you guys hear the background music? Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that in next stream. Unfortunately, in this stream, we're not gonna have some music, but don't worry. In the next stream, I will fix it all. I'll make the stream so much better. Um, we'll have more people here as well. Um, but yeah, I love having small streams. Uh, it helps me as well as you guys create deeper connections and having deeper conversation. Because when there's a lot of people, obviously chat goes crazy, right? There's so many people typing things, and it's often difficult to answer every question. But like this, I like this. I can read most of the questions on chat, which is good. That one famous Sage background music, I love that music, man. It's one of my favorite musics. Okay, I'm gonna answer one more question, and I do have to go. Without identity, you are a foreign character. You have all these specific traits, but you don't own them. Therefore, without identity, you're just a spectator. What do you think? But being a spectator is still having identity. Being a foreign character is still having identity. So, without any of those things, what are you? One could perceive what I'm asking as a paradox because there isn't really an answer to it. Most of what we say would be an identity, would be classified as an identity. I heard they use others to get their goals, more like a mix between dark philosophy that the man doesn't care about others, but this time in Machiavellism, they do anything to anyone for themselves. That makes sense. That sounds very close, not exactly the same, but it sounds very similar to solipsism, the philosophy of solipsism. Okay, I think you should try meditating and finding a hobby like drawing or whatever. Um, the thing is, I meditate every single day. I've been meditating for about 5 years now, and I love it. Meditation is amazing. It really is. I think meditation was the reason as to why I've managed to know so much about myself, if that makes sense. There's a lot of self-reflection in meditation. All right. That pretty much sums up today's live stream. I hope everyone enjoyed the live stream, by the way. Do let me know if you learned something, if you enjoyed it. I've personally learned a lot regarding many different topics. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you. I'm answering to submit more. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Um, but yeah, thank you for tuning in, everyone. I appreciate every single one of you. Um, do take care of yourselves. I'll be streaming again this following week. Not sure when. I will update you guys on Instagram, TikTok, and Discord. But yeah, take care of yourselves. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next week. Take care, guys.